Alright, y'all, welcome back to Common Arms channel. So today's video, I'm doing a reaction to a YouTuber that y'all might be familiar with. His name is Original Human. Now, I did a chat with him about a week ago, and not too long before that, he uploaded a video about the Royal Marines and mental toughness. So I feel like this is a good video for y'all to check out if you're trying to join the military. And I've seen a little bit of it so far, but it's definitely something that I want to do a little reaction to because it sort of correlates with some training that I've gotten in the Army. So in the Army, we have the Master Resiliency Training course, and that basically means you send someone from the unit to get this training and bring back to the unit these tips that'll sort of help all the soldiers maintain resiliency, learn how to do problem solving a little bit more effectively, learn how to set goals and achieve those goals. So it sort of goes hand in hand with mental toughness. But again, I think it's a good video for us to check out just because mental toughness is a thing that people struggle with a lot. Physical fitness is something you can always train, but mental toughness, sometimes you might need, some tips and tricks to help you out. So we're going to get right into it, and should be a good video.
Okay, so there's a trick the Royal Marines use to improve your mental toughness. Now, if I was writing this, I'd put a little asterisk there and be like, well, actually, it doesn't actually improve your mental toughness. What it actually does is it lets you assess the situation that you're in. But from the outside.
So I want to talk about something he was just alluding to. So he was saying, it's not really going to increase your mental toughness. It's something to help you to reassess. Now, increasing your mental toughness, being able to be mentally tough towards a specific thing, normally requires you to do that thing, once or twice, or get in a routine of doing a specific thing. And with that, you start to build perseverance. But being able to, reassess and, sort of focus on how you're thinking about a situation allows you to be more resilient in that situation. Because normally what people don't enjoy is, that fear of the unknown, that fear of, not knowing, what's next, how you're going to respond to a certain situation. So it's important that he's making that distinction between, actually increasing your mental toughness and, just you getting inside your own mind and, getting control of your own thoughts.
Side, when you see someone else do this, you think, oh my God, their mental toughness they must be like David Goggins. They must be going out doing 50 miles in hurricanes. But it's not. It's a good way of assessing the situation that you're in and being like, look, I can do this. And they've been doing this. The Romans have been doing this for a long time, longer than people have been discussing mental toughness. So what's the trick? All right, it's simple. I say it's simple, but it's hard. They beast you so much in training, the 30-miler, final X, so that when you get out of training, you go to a unit, you go on operations, you go in the field, blah, 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 you can turn around and say to yourself, I've done worse. That's it. All right, now that...
Okay, so that's really interesting to me, especially from the Marines and going into the Army. That's not really something that people focus on. They don't normally teach someone, hey, like, think about this time, like, you have done worse. And I think that's because in the Marines and in the Army, the hardest part isn't boot camp, isn't basic training. Marine Corps boot camp is relatively simple if you can get your mind around it. And you're being told what to do. You don't really have to think for yourself. You don't really need to show up, physically fit. And the Army, again, that's pretty much just on a lower scale as far as Marine Corps boot camp. But you're not going through these, grueling exercises like a 30-miler, or the Royal Marines Commando test. You're not really going through things like that. There's a few obstacles that you have to overcome during boot camp and basic training, but not to the point where when you think about everything that you're going to do in the actual infantry or whatever your job actually entails, there's a lot of things that you can do that are more difficult than what you've done at boot camp basic training. I think, that when we leave Marine Corps boot camp, they tell us, that this was the easiest part of your Marine Corps career. Everything else is going to be harder. And it's true because you're being told what to do. you don't really need to think about it too much. You kind of just get in a routine of doing it. Now with mental toughness, that's when it comes to really motivating yourself to do something. And in the Marines and the Army, if you're motivating yourself to do something, that's usually like internally, or that's usually self-driven. It's not something that a unit or organization is necessarily going to push upon you. Like if you want to go to Ranger School, if you want to go to a selection process, that's something that you take upon yourself, because you're comfortable testing your own mental toughness. But if there's a situation that someone didn't really want to put themselves into, like it wasn't up to them, that's when their mental toughness is really going to be, challenged.
Might sound really simple, but psychologically, when you're in a run, when you're yomping or you're running or you're on bottom field, you're constantly having that little battle in your head, aren't you? Oh, maybe I should just stop after this mile. Oh, just stop down and walk for a little bit, and then you'll be able to go longer later. But you don't end up going longer later. You're always having this little internal battle, and what this does is it basically puts a stop to that, and you can turn around and say to yourself, I've done this before. In fact, I've done worse. So that's why they have the 30 mile. That's why they have Final X. Now let me rewind a little bit. Why?
Yeah, so like he's saying, like, I really like the mindset of, you want to join this organization. We're going to push as much as we can on you to see if you really want to join, if you really want to be a part of it. Now, again, with Marine Corps, Army, boot camp, basic training, that's not really the mindset that they get in. Now, he's saying they use this trick to sort of get out of their own thoughts. And so in the Army and the resiliency training that I went through, there is certain ways to get yourself out of it, and normally putting things in perspective, like, okay, this isn't going to be as bad as I'm thinking, or I've done something similar to this, I could probably do something a little bit harder. So that there's certain tricks that the Army teaches to use. In addition, there's mental games, just doing things to distract yourself so you're not spiraling. And then there's also something called the ATC model, which basically means actions, thoughts, and consequences. So your thoughts will drive certain emotions and reactions, which will drive your actions, which will drive more thoughts. So it's basically just telling you to get control of that cycle, control your thoughts, so you can control your emotions. But the way he's describing it is the Royal Marines, enforces all of that, that discipline and all that physical fitness on you in such a, short period of time, relatively short. I think it's like 32 weeks. There's not a whole lot that you can compare it to, especially, people join when they're 16 years old. There's not a whole lot that they can compare things to. And then especially after the fact, once they know that they've already climbed over that mountain, so to speak, like, they can just think of it as like a downhill battle at that point.
Why would I tell you this? What's the point in this for someone who may be wanting to join the Royal Marines or is just getting fit for the Royal Marines? The idea is you can take this little exercise and you can implement it into everything. And I'm talking everything, not just exercise. You can implement it into the joining process with the interview or just talking to people. If you're going up and you got to do a presentation or something, you can implement this in many different ways. Okay, so for example, let's say you've got to do the 3 mile to join the Royal Marines, the pre-joining fitness test. It's like a mile and a half in 12 minutes, and then a mile and a half in 10 minutes and 30, I think. So that's 22 minutes and 30 seconds, 3 miles with a little bit break. Why don't you go out, if you're prepping for this, why don't you go out and do 4 miles in 48 minutes? So it's not just as quick as the pre-joining fitness test, but it's much longer. And what happens then is you've done 4 miles. Wait, I said 4 miles. I mean 6 miles. 6 miles at 48 minutes. So basically double. And what this does is you get on that treadmill and they're like, okay, you got to do your pre-joining fitness test, you got to do 12 miles, you got to do your mile and a half in 12 minutes, and you'll be like, geez, I've done this, let's get it done with, I've done it before, this is easy. Now, I'm talking mindset.
So that's very true. Now, when I was training to join the Marines, I would run more than 3 miles, because that's what you have to do during the actual Marine Corps fitness test. And what that does for me is, okay, yeah, it's 3 miles, but I've run, like he was saying, like I didn't do 6, but I would run 5 miles. But okay, so I ran 5 mile and I was able to maintain this pace. So if I can maintain this pace during 3 miles, which is much easier, then I can pass. But if I can push myself a little bit further, then I know I can get an even better time. So it's it's not necessarily, letting, the basic training or your boot camp, make these events for you. You can even do it on your own time. So if there's a course that you're training up for, or, if there's like a marathon or half marathon or what have you, if you, exceed those miles, those standards, then whenever it comes time to the actual challenge, you're going to feel comfortable doing it. Now, I know like in the Army, you only have to do 2 miles. So that was easy for me to transition because, I'm used to doing 3 miles. I can do 2 miles easily. But when you're practicing, doing a mile, mile and a half, when in reality your fitness test is 2 miles, once you get to that mile, mile and a half, you're going to hit a mental barrier. And that's when those thoughts start coming up like, maybe I should just walk it out for a little bit. Maybe I should just chill. You really want to set yourself up for success and, challenge yourself before the fact. So you know how you're going to respond.
Here, obviously you got to get your fitness up. Obviously you got to eat well. But this is training that little muscle, that little determination muscle, to get through anything that you're in. You could do it for your joining interview. You could have a friend of yours turn around and give you 100 questions, and the more you practice, obviously, the more you'll answer all them 100 questions. And then when you get into the interview and they only ask you like 10 questions, and you're like, oh, well, that was nothing compared to what I've done before. I can do that again. So it's that simple. And again, you have to take this in the context that it is that this is just training your determination. You also have to train your fitness, and you have to eat well and all that jazz. Okay, you need to stretch at night to prevent injury. But what this does, this ticks that box of being like, I don't need that little battle in my brain anymore. I can go for this 6 mile run knowing that I've just done 12 miles last week. So 6 miles is going to be nothing. It's only half of what I did last time. That's the trick. Oh, I've got an interview for a job. Wait a second.
So I really like how he's, not necessarily attributing it to, like physical fitness or what have you. He's talking about interviews and whatnot. So like for me, public speaking is like, it was a huge fear, especially when I joined. But when you get to the point where, you're doing things, or you've done a brief or something before for like a big group of people, once you have like groups that are smaller, even if the subject is a little bit different, like you just feel more comfortable. Like it's not so much a shock to your brain. And that's what he's saying. It's basically making it so how your body's going to react. And it's not necessarily just, okay, I'm going to wait and see how I react. I can train pretty much up to this. And I think, in the future, I can pick up the slack. This is basically just removing that doubt entirely. So it's not necessarily like mental toughness, but it's mental confidence. You're confident in how you're going to react in the future because you've done something similar or something worse.
Second, I passed a Royal Marine interview at the age of 16. That's what I was thinking. So this interview is going to be nowhere near as like intimidating as that. I implement it now. I left the Royal Marines 8 years ago, and I still implement that. I went for a 7 mile run today, and it's like 2 laps of the cove where I live. And after the first lap, I'm like, oh, I'm aching. Oh, maybe you should just go home and stretch for a little bit. Talking all this rubbish in my brain, having that little battle. And I was thinking, wait a second. Assess the situation, right? It was icy out. There was ice all over the ground, so I'm kind of not running fast. I'm running like 10-minute miles, like real slow. And I'm thinking, why? What am I doing? I've run so much before. This is nothing. Sure enough, I did an extra lap, went home. I was happy with that because that's what I planned to do that day. But it ticked that box. It ticked that I've done worse, So, take this as it is. Don't go out and be David Goggins and run 50 miles expecting to be able to do everything else with a breeze. Nice and steady, get your fitness up, eat well, and you'll do fantastic. Take this little exercise, implement it in most of your life. If you've got a test coming up, train for something worse than that test, and you'll end up doing better than that test. It's super easy. The Royal Marines have been doing this for a long, long time. Okay, well, if you enjoyed this video, please press the like button, subscribe, because there is some really good videos coming up, and I will see you in the next video. Take it easy, everyone.
Yeah, so all very good points. And now, what he was saying also reminded me of something else. So when you have a success, whether you pass a course or you do really well on like a fitness test, once you have a success and you have another success after that, and you get like this streak going on, like that really raises your spirits. So it's important, if you plan to do something, like just make sure you're going at it 100%. So even if it's something as simple as a run, like I'm going to go run 3 miles, and you hit like a mile and a half, like on a treadmill or what have you, and you're like, yeah, I could probably just stop at 2. That's okay. If you start doing that, then your streak is just going to end right there. When you have these, these success streaks, your motivation just stays up there. It's so much easier to maintain because you're not thinking about maybe I should just stop at 2 miles as opposed to the 3 that I planned on doing. It's not even going to come up in your mind because you know that you've been doing this. You've been doing what you have been striving for. So once you get that success streak going, it's kind of just like riding a wave at that point. But this is an awesome video. I would expect nothing less from Original Human. But if you guys aren't familiar with his YouTube, I'd go check it out because he's got a lot of cool videos like this. But this is really solid advice, especially if you're trying to actually go into the military, because it allows you to think beforehand. Like, failure is not an option. Me stopping a little bit earlier than what I said is not an option. If you make it so it's not an option, then it's going to be so much easier for you down the road. Because if you set yourself for a task, you know how your body's going to react to it. You know that you can do it. You're not going to get those thoughts in your head of maybe I can just stop here. But very good video, definitely something to think about. If you guys like these sort of videos about mental toughness, feel free to let me know. I can talk a little bit more about my resiliency training that I did. It's pretty good stuff. Unfortunately, in the Marines, I don't have anything like that, but it's really beneficial for any military to have some sort of training like that, or something, to make sure that people aren't getting inside their own heads and leading them into failure. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'll see y'all in the next one.